Okay, so this is Adisa Stephenez Ocha interviewing Pablo Reid, director of Disrupt Space, and want to find out about where the idea came from and the future. So let's begin. So greetings, Mr. Reid. Greetings, Pablo.
Greetings, brother.
Right now, first thing I'm interested to know is Disrupt Space, the name of the organization. Where did that come from? Disrupt Space.
When I look back at my career, I think I've always been disrupting. I don't disrupt intentionally. I enter spaces to do the right thing. But very quickly, what happens is I start to see that there's things there that need to be changed, wanting to push the boundaries.
Yeah.
And, that's uncomfortable for people.
Mm.
And I actually think that when I look back throughout my entire life, I've always been that person, the person that went into somewhere, to do a good job. And in the process, ends up actually challenging the status quo and wanting to move things on. And the golden thread throughout all of that tends to be issues around race and equality.
But I wondered if someone were to say to you, what is your elevator pitch for Disrupt Space in a nutshell? What are we about? What are we trying to do out here in the world? What are we trying to say in a sentence? What would you sum it up as? What are we trying to do in a sentence?
I think it's difficult to say it in a sentence, but I think essentially we're supporting artists. We're supporting our Black artists, right? Who are having difficulties to realize their potential. And Disrupt Space is supporting them on their journey. Offset against that is the climate, is the world that they're in. I mean, the whole world of the arts is, it's very culturally biased. And it's got a whole entire history of excluding Black people of African descent from that whole world. We feel repelled and excluded. And so we are creating a platform, we are creating an environment, we are creating a movement, I suppose. It's not the beginning of a movement. There's always been a Black arts movement in this country. But what we're doing is, I suppose, is really targeting the young, emerging artist, contemporary visual artist, and supporting them. There are already some people that have made it and are selling and are highly acclaimed and accomplished. But the younger artist that really doesn't have a full appreciation of the environment that they're in, they're really up against it. And so, although there are great markets around Black art in Africa and also in America and in parts of Europe, in Britain, this is a massively under-realized market.
Tell me a little bit about how the process works. How does it work between yourself, the artist, and the market that will eventually buy their work? How does the process work of Disrupt Space?
I reach out to artists, I speak to them, talk about what it is that we're trying to achieve, and that often includes an analysis of the kind of environment that we're in terms of their experiences, what they're trying to achieve, the difficulties that they're having, and how Disrupt Space can maybe provide a service or an opportunity for them to grow.
Right.
So I'm always looking for artists that have an energy that's saying something, that it's not art for art's sake. Generally speaking, I'm looking for artists that have the potential to engage, to connect, and to use the art to convey message. I mean, ultimately, we want art to be bought, and we want art to be in public places as well as in our home.
Yeah.
So if you take a piece of art and you put it on the wall, it's talking about who you are as a person and what you believe in and what your values are. You made a choice when you put something on the wall, or you put an object in your home. It's a choice that we make. And so I'm trying to develop a number of artists who then become successful and through their work, we end up in homes and in public spaces, influencing how people think and how ultimately how people behave.
Over the years, art has been seen as quite a middle class endeavor to collect art, to even go and view art. You come from a certain background, certain education to appreciate art. And I'm wondering how you see your role in reaching the whole of the Black community to re-engage, let's say, with art. I know there's a strong middle class who would support art as it is, but I mean the wider community. I don't like the term of working class, but we use that for now. How can we get them to be more engaged with artists that are out there now?
I think first and foremost, that, you know, the work speaks for itself. The work is compelling. The work is beautiful. It's, you know, it's amazing. It makes us think. It's challenging. It does all of these things, you know. So it doesn't really necessarily have to do too much work itself. Not the art. It's for people like us to create the events, to create the moments, to invite people, and to make that work affordable. I think the interesting thing about class and art is that it's often out of reach for us financially, and also it's been described intellectually in such a way that we're not really interested in that whole. I say we, I mean generally speaking, it's off-putting, and it's deliberately off-putting, you know. And so I suppose what we're trying to do is to find the language that connects with the average person, and also the language is one thing, but also the price point, you know. So if you can't afford to buy a piece of art, that's a challenge for me,
Yeah.
because I want you to be able to afford to buy a piece of art. And so, you know, there might be ways that we can organize for, you know, for you to buy something. And that could range anything from a limited edition print right the way through to a wonderful oil or acrylic. And we can talk about the payments over time to actually acquire that if you can't afford it in one chunk.
Bearing in mind the times we're living in right now with COVID-19 and the isolation situation we find ourselves in, I know that art is a very communal thing, and people come out to events to see the art, see the artist. How's Disrupt Space going to cope with the period we're going through right now with no social gathering?
Well, hopefully it's temporary, you know, and that bar gets lifted at some point. But even in this period, we're launching a two-stage process of engaging with our audience and growing our audience. So in the first instance, this interview kicks off meeting our artists, meeting our associates, you know, journeying with them to find out more about, you know, what they do and how they create art. And then there's a stage which is about, you know, creating art with us. So we'll support people who are interested by way of webinars or what have you, or, you know, these live kind of video catch-ups, to create art with us. And in that way, we're seeing people, you know, we'll see people engage with us and to start to develop their talents. And then ultimately we move to like the final stage around this engagement piece, which is about learning with us. And that will be lectures and seminars by way of kind of webinar format, so that people can find out more. And that's going to be everything about, you know, the world of Black art, the world of art, actually, right the way through to things like, you know, validation, valuation, and how we as a community can get much more involved in creating portfolios around art that allows us to maybe create wealth. So we can start to talk about wealth creation and art.
If we can, let's leap beyond COVID-19. Let's leap beyond next year. Let's leap at least 5 years into the future. What does Disrupt Space look like in 5 years' time?
I think I would like to see Disrupt Space as a household name up and down the country with international connections. We will have had our own gallery launched by then. You know, we would have a really vibrant network of Black visual artists. You know, we'd start to really kind of enter into that space of African contemporary art. we will have a growing movement of collectors. People will be talking about Black art in ways in this country, in ways that we really haven't done before. We've spoken about Black art, but we haven't really kind of celebrated it in the way that we need to. And it won't just be us that will be talking about Black art. Everybody will see the value, and that's not just the artistic value, the monetary value, the intellectual value, the creative value. But for that to happen, we really need to raise our game. So in 5 years' time, we want to really be out there doing that kind of work nationally with international links right across the world. There is a growing interest in Black art, and so yes, collaborations is definite. I mean, we've got some relationships in Morocco, also in Spain, in the Caribbean, and yes, in Nigeria. And we want to be able to kind of realize those relationships, and those relationships turn into tangible collaborations and projects.
One of the things I've observed from listening to you is that people have always played a central part in your work and your focus and your drive. Is that something that's conscious in your mind as you work from one organization to another to now to Disrupt Space? Is it always been about the people driven? Are you conscious of that?
I'm conscious that race and inequality have always been drivers in my life. And it doesn't really matter what space I'm in. I'm currently in the space of the arts. Prior to that, it was around heritage. And before that, or running parallel throughout all of this, has been young people and the next generation. I think, to be honest, all of these things come together through Disrupt Space. Disrupt Space is young, it's heritage, it's the arts, it's politics, it's Pan-African, and its legacy, and it's about, and it's about the future. And this whole period that we're in at the moment, that's got all of this uncertainty about it, I think the role of the artist is going to be key in imagining what life will be like in the future. Can we possibly press pause on the things that we don't like about what we've done as human beings to the world and to each other? Does it create an opportunity for us to reimagine, a world that we might be more comfortable with, more pleased with ourselves? And I think the artists can help us to imagine and create that world. They can challenge the past, and they can vision the future.
I want to thank you, Pablo, for your time and your enthusiasm and your knowledge and your vision for Disrupt Space. And I wish you all the best with it.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Thank you very much, my brother Adisa. And we out.
Yeah.